I know this might be heresy to admit around these parts, but Breath of the Wild is not my favorite game of all time. It's not even my favorite Zelda game. In fact, I don't even think it's top 5. I like it. I'd even say that I love Breath of the Wild, but I have a lot of problems with it. Tears of the Kingdom, on the other hand, is definitely in my top 5. I think it's an incredible game, and although it does get some things wrong, see my video on the Sky Islands for an example, it brings so much that is new and exciting to the Breath of the Wild formula. But aside from just how much I love the new mechanics like the fuse system and building through Ultra Hand, what elevates Tears of the Kingdom for me is that in addition to introducing so many incredible new mechanics, it also very thoroughly fixes issues that I had with Breath of the Wild. Just about every complaint I had with Breath of the Wild has been addressed by Tears of the Kingdom in part or in full. So what Nintendo has essentially done is taken a game that I am very fond of but have issues with and solved all of my issues, leaving me with a game that I have a very easy time falling in love with. Tears of the Kingdom is flawed for sure. I'm not going to deny that there's some serious issues with the story, but in my opinion, it fixes far more flaws than it introduces. I'm going to spend a couple videos talking about the flaws in Breath of the Wild that I believe have been remedied in Tears of the Kingdom. And to start with, I'd like to bring up what is easily the most controversial flaw, in that whether or not it is even considered a flaw is about a 50-50 split depending on who you ask. And that is, of course, Breath of the Wild's weapon durability. I want to talk about how, in my opinion, Tears of the Kingdom deals with weapon durability complaints in a way that does not harm the system for those who enjoyed the mechanic. And I'd like to talk about how they do this by not actually changing anything at all. Before we get into that though, I think it would be good to explain my issues with weapon durability since it is such a contentious topic. I do want to clarify first that I'm not looking for a debate here. You're welcome to leave your rebuttal to my arguments on weapon durability in the comments, but I'm liable to not reply since that's not the focus of the video. The focus is on Tears of the Kingdom and how, in my opinion, it made a system satisfying for everybody. And I simply feel that explaining my position on weapon durability in Breath of the Wild first will allow me to make my point on Tears of the Kingdom better. So what is my problem with weapon degradation in Breath of the Wild? I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail because I could and will eventually make an entire video about this, but the long and short of it is that to me, weapon degradation directly clashes with the design philosophy of Breath of the Wild and butts heads with the rest of the pillars of design in a way that actively takes away from the overall experience for me. I'm not opposed to the idea of weapons breaking. I find it to be a bearable mechanic in 100 other games, but the weapons in Breath of the Wild break with a severity pretty much unseen in just about any other game I've ever played with the mechanic. A wooden stick is hardly going to last more than a single bokoblin fight, which is realistic, but an actual sword made of metal isn't going to last much longer. It's not unusual to go up against a strong enemy or a large camp and leave the encounter with roughly half your inventory, sometimes more, broken. What this means is that I formed a pretty significant detachment from the weapons themselves. I think the purpose of this mechanic is in part to try and force the player into using a variety of weapons instead of sticking with one, to try and promote a sense of diversity in gameplay. But the low threshold for each weapon to break, in addition to the fact that difficulty in Breath of the Wild is added by cranking up hit points, means that the sense of variety isn't really achieved for me. It is true that when I'm fighting a strong enemy with lots of hit points, I will be using a variety of weapons, but that's just because all of my weapons are breaking, and I'm using the new ones out of necessity. I'm not using the spear for a tactical reason because it makes sense to. I'm using it because my last weapon broke, and it's time to move on to the next one in my inventory. Even if I wanted to use the spear for tactical purposes, say I have the high ground or something, it's not going to last very long until it breaks and then I'm back to using a different weapon. As a result, I don't really pay attention to the minutiae of how each weapon works, since I won't be spending enough time with them for the individual differences to matter. When a weapon in my inventory breaks, I don't stop to think what the best weapon for this scenario would be. I simply equip the next weapon in the list and swing it until it breaks. This, combined with the decision to have difficulty increase come via turning enemies into bags of hit points, which is another aspect of Breath of the Wild I really don't enjoy, makes it so that in general I don't have a lot of fun with combat. I tend to just bypass enemies completely instead of stopping to fight them. It also severely impacts my enjoyment of exploration. I'm not much of a Korok seed guy, and aside from them, the other things you'll find in the nooks and crannies are treasure chests, which are often going to contain weaponry. But since getting a royal sword as a quest reward simply has no effect on me, since I know even a high quality sword like that will not be in my inventory for long, it just doesn't feel rewarding for me to explore. Same with secondary objectives in shrines. When I complete one and I'm rewarded with a weapon, it's completely uninteresting to me. I would have rather had a ruby. At least I can sell that to buy some good arrows. My dislike of weapon degradation is so strong that when I play on the Switch, I pretty much exclusively use the Master Sword, and when it breaks, I just set the game down for 10 minutes until it restores. In fact, the greatest damnation I can give weapon durability in Breath of the Wild is simply that once I started playing the Special Edition PC version of the game, the first thing I did was install a mod to remove weapon durability entirely, and it immediately skyrocketed my enjoyment of the game. So, in shorthand, this is why I don't like weapon durability in Breath of the Wild. Again, I'm not looking for a debate, not in this video anyways. I just wanted to lay out the reasoning so I can now explain why Tears of the Kingdom has made it so not only do I not mind weapon durability, but I actually enjoy the mechanic now as much as I think I was meant to in Breath of the Wild, and how they did this by really not changing anything at all. Weapons still break at more or less the same rate as before. A Royal Claymore will still break after a couple fights. The weapon durability system is completely untouched, but one of the new systems they added to the game, the Fuse ability, retroactively makes weapon durability significantly better in my opinion. There are a few different dimensions to how Fuse solves the weapon durability problem, but the most straightforward and basic area is simply the fact that fused weapons have across the board higher durability than basic weapons. Anytime you fuse two weapons together, they are going to have a higher durability than they started with, and since both weapons and fusible materials are in abundance, you will almost never be using unfused weapons unless it's by choice. So if you compare a full inventory in Breath of the Wild to a full inventory in Tears of the Kingdom, just by the nature of the fuse mechanic, the Tears of the Kingdom inventory is going to have a higher durability. And this does make a noticeable difference. This alone doesn't solve the problem, and weapons do still break plenty even with the durability boost from being fused, but there is no doubt that things are much more bearable now. The days of a stick breaking after 3 hits are gone. Now my stick breaks in 6. But the thing is, the fuse system is wonderfully in-depth for customization. The only rule is that one half of the fuse has to be a weapon or a shield, and the other half can be just about anything, be it another weapon, a material, or part of the environment. Fusing a material to a weapon will give you a flat boost to your durability of 25, and fusing 2 weapons adds their durability together. So fusing any 2 weapons or materials will give some durability increase, but picking specifically durable weapons to fuse materials with, or even fusing 2 highly durable weapons together, is going to give you a significant increase to the longevity of your weapon. If you want to significantly increase the life of your weapons and bypass the durability system a little bit, you can just slap a boulder or a shield onto every weapon. What really takes this to the next level though is the fact that weapons and items also have effects in addition to their varied durability that take place when fused. The abilities from materials are quite often obvious. A puff shroom is going to create a burst of clouds, whereas a fire breath Lizalfos horn is going to deal fire damage, and a silver Lionel's saber horn is going to provide a massive attack power boost. But where it gets really interesting is the fact that certain weapons also have passive abilities and randomized weapon modifiers, many that activate when fused, which can often stack with the materials. And for our purposes, some of these abilities can hugely increase the longevity of a weapon, such as the durability up modifier or the extra durable passive ability. So if you can find a weapon that has extra durable or durability up, or maybe even both, and you fuse that with a material, you are left with a weapon that can last an extremely long time without breaking. And so what we're left with after all of these systems and subsystems is that the game has granted us the ability to hugely and dramatically increase the durability of our weapons if we would like to the degree that the mechanic starts to feel a little bit negligible. With fused weapons naturally having higher durability, in addition to being able to significantly increase it through purposeful fuse combinations based on passive abilities and weapon modifiers. This has ultimately satisfied my issue with weapon durability, and as I opened the video with, they did it by changing absolutely nothing. The base system was not modified at all, at least that I know. They did not take away durability to make the contrarians such as I happy. The durability system is unchanged, and the people who enjoy it can fully delight in making weapons that will break in 5 hits, while we can enjoy weapons that'll be able to take a beating. They solved the problem through the introduction of new mechanics in an inclusive way that satisfies everybody involved, and I think that the degree of finesse with which they were able to do this is a little bit incredible. It's this sort of cohesive and inclusive thinking that is at the core of Tears of the Kingdom in a number of ways, but it is significantly felt in the weapon durability system. So that's that, my issue is solved. I think they fixed weapon durability in Tears of the Kingdom, but there's still a little bit of video left, isn't there? Why is that? Well, because I want to talk about something else that happened in Tears of the Kingdom. You see, it is true that durability stopped being an issue for me, and in the early game, I certainly did rely on mega durable weapons to salvage my fun. But then something strange happened as the game went on. I started to... I shudder to say it, but I actually started to be okay with weapon durability in general. And what's even more horrifying is that I actually started to like it. By the end of Tears of the Kingdom, weapons breaking began to put a smile on my face. How can this be? How can such a dyed-in-the-wool weapon durability hater learn to love it? Well, it isn't because I've discovered a revelation or repented my sins or anything like that. I went back to Breath of the Wild for a little bit, and I do indeed still hate the mechanic there. But the fact of the matter is that the fuse system is just so inherently enjoyable that when a weapon breaks, I just get excited to craft a new one. I don't find there to be any creativity in the breaking of a weapon in Breath of the Wild. There isn't much of a decision to be made in which piece of glass you're going to switch to next. But in Tears of the Kingdom, if my Royal Claymore glued to another Royal Claymore breaks, maybe I'll switch to my spear with a blue moblin horn on the end of it, or throw a boomerang attached to a puff shroom to distract them. It's extremely fun to combine weapons, not just to see how your mad scientist combination performs, but also just to see what it visually looks like. Sometimes the fuse literally is just 2 weapons jankily glued together, but other times they fuse into something quite visually stunning. In Breath of the Wild, a full inventory was a relief because it meant that I didn't have to worry about running out of weapons. But in Tears of the Kingdom, a full inventory is a bit of a burden because I want to run out of weapons to free up slots so I can try some new wacky combinations. Even now, hundreds of hours in, the system has not lost its appeal. Don't get me wrong, I have a few extremely efficient combinations that I always have on hand that I can fall back on, and I do always have at least one mega durable weapon in case that irritation begins to creep back. But hundreds of hours later, I still get the same fun feeling for killing a fire Lizalfos and slapping its horn onto the tip of a spear. So, at the end of the day, what Tears of the Kingdom does is pretty remarkable. It fixes weapon durability in an inclusive way that leaves it intact for those who like it, while giving options to those of us who don't. But it goes an extra step by making the fuse system so fun and crafting new weapons to replace your old ones so enjoyable that it successfully does what I think Breath of the Wild tries to do, and finally makes using a wide range of weapons enjoyable. The fact that Tears of the Kingdom manages to pull this off is, in my opinion, amazing. What do you think? I'm really curious to hear from the audience on this one, particularly if you are also somebody who disliked weapon durability in Breath of the Wild. I'd love to hear how you feel about it now under the influence of the fuse system. Did you find it to be an agreeable compromise, or do you still wish the mechanic was removed altogether? Or, perhaps like me, the fuse system has caused you to fall in love with weapon durability altogether. Please do let me know in the comments down below. If you'd like to support me, you can do so by liking and subscribing, leaving a comment and sharing the video. You can come follow me on Twitter or join my Discord. And if you'd like to support me directly, you can do so by coming over to Patreon and joining the Saprosian Parade, where you can have a Saprosian of your very own. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe out there. Normally I'd tell you to take a weapon with you if you go out, because there's monsters everywhere and it's dangerous to go alone. But what the heck, take 2 of them and stick them together. Of course the sword is better than the mere single sword. See you guys next video.